Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Unlocked. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson. In just a few moments, I'm going to be bringing onto the screen the amazing Terri Britt. And I know that you guys are going to want to tune into today's show because we're going to be talking about how to identify your worthiness with the worthiness. And I'm going to butcher this, I know it, because I said it the wrong way before when we were behind the scenes, but your worthiness quotient. And I got that wrong, I totally know. But anyway, how are we going to make that work for you? Terri's having a bit of a laugh at me behind the screen right now. So I'm going to make sure that without further ado, I'm going to cue in the timer. It's going to run for 60 seconds. So go get yourself a pen, a glass of water, cup of coffee, glass of wine, whatever it is. And stay tuned for the amazing Terri Britt because I'm going to bring her onto the screen very, very shortly. So hang about for another episode of The Unlock Show. See you guys in about 60 seconds. Well, hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Unlock Show. I'm Tracy Wilson, and I'm going to bring to the screen right this instant the amazing Terri Britt.
Hey, everybody.
I know she was behind the screen there listening to me do the cue-in and totally butchered that. But, you know, she will make sure that that she corrects me on my pronunciation of that word. I say quotient. She says
Quotient.
There you go.
Quotient.
So there you go.
Worthiness quotient.
Oh my goodness. They still can't get it right. I will tune these Aussie ears in to make sure that I hear that correctly and I'm able to pronounce it correctly before the end of the show. But anyway, amazing to have Terri here with me today. And I was just telling her she is responsible for having a nursery rhyme stuck in my head for most of this morning. And I'll tell you a little bit of story about that. You might even get to hear something a little bit different that I don't normally do on the show at all. And you're probably going to ask me, never, ever, ever do it again. And I will do it in just a few minutes. So if you want to have a bit of a laugh at Tracy, then you might want to hang around for a bit. But let me tell you why we have Terri on the show this morning. So she has created something that's pretty amazing. And we're talking about identifying your worthiness. I'm not even going to try it. I'm just going to go identify your worthiness
quotient
and make it work for you, like how we actually do that. So we're going to be talking about like how we actually, you know, get ourselves off the hamster wheel, get off of that stress and struggle, and how we can start creating a life that actually enables us to be happy, to be, you know, feel like we're worthy, feel like we're, you know, having abundance all around us. So that being said, somebody's saying, yes, 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 sing. Yeah, I'm going to attempt to sing. My family would tell me, please don't ever, ever, ever do that again. But this will be probably the first and the last time you ever hear me do this. And seeing as it's kind of like a little ditty to a nursery rhyme, I'm sure that I'm going to be able to handle this. And maybe Terri might even chime in and help me out with it. So what has been stuck in my head all morning, people, because I've gone to Terri's website and on there she had a video that she was talking about this concept. And she started out with this particular little ditty. And it goes, I receive abundance simply for being me. I give and receive it freely with grace and ease. There you go. That's about as good as I get.
Yeah.
It's totally not American Idol on this show, but, you know, that's what we do, right?
I'm so glad you did the singing instead of me.
Well, you know, sometimes we just have to laugh at oneself. So I've got a new little...
Putting that ditty on there, I have to tell you, Tracy, putting that on my website was a huge that was really breaking boundaries for me because I've never considered myself being able to sing. I still don't consider myself being able to sing, but that was a divine download and it had such a beautiful message to it. I'm like, oh, what the heck? I'm going to put it on here.
Well, I'm going to say, I would say I would never normally sing like that in front of like any kind of audience because I don't even think
Yeah.
I'm, have a singing voice either. But you inspired me to do so. I thought if she can do it, well, you know what the heck, I'll do it too. So off I went, and it will now be a little ditty that I will probably sing with my grandchildren. So I was trying, and the funny thing was this morning as we were walking, we're totally off topic. I know people, but this just gives you a bit of an insight. As I was listening to that and I'm like just bopping along to it, my husband's doing the same thing. He's like, play it again. What is it? What is it? What is it? And so we're singing it together. I'm like, that's a nursery rhyme. What is that nursery rhyme? So that sent me on a bit of a journey. My family knows that my grandmother used to sing to me as a young child all the nursery rhymes, so I kind of know lots and lots and lots of nursery rhymes that my husband's often going, never even heard of that before. So I knew it was a nursery rhyme. I knew it was Little Bunny Foo Foo. There you go.
And I had to ask you when you started singing it, I'm like, I don't even remember what the tune was. I mean, I know what the tune was, but I didn't remember where it came from. I was sitting there rubbing my dogs and I don't know what I was singing to them. I doubt it was Little Bunny Foo Foo, but I don't know. And all of a sudden that came through me and I went, oh my gosh, it's huge. It's a huge message.
Things come from the strangest places or not the strangest places, right? We often get, she would call it a download that's like, hey, this is a message that needs to be shared. And so let's start doing that. Let's sharing kind of this message and sharing what it is that you've been up to. So let's talk a little bit about kind of your background, because boy, what a background you've had. Former Miss America, come coach to some really big name people, spiritual coach, energetic healer, speaker, and change agent that has become a change agent for women and their families all over the world. Totally up my alley, totally in, the zone that all things right. I love. So I'm loving that you're doing all of that. So tell us kind of how does a former Miss America kind of make this turn into doing what you're doing now?
Well, first off, I have to say it was Miss USA. There is a difference. They have talent. We don't.
Right. Well, I don't know about
Other
that.
Than singing,
I think we've just figured out that you've got lots of other talents. But anyway, Miss USA.
I heard that so many times over my years Miss USA back in 1982 that I finally said, okay, well, you want me to show you my talent? And I literally would take my dress, stuff it between my legs, and bring my toes up and pinch my nose and say, that's my talent. But I talked about drinking beer and dipping skull on the back of a pickup truck when Bob Barker asked me, what do you do in Cabot, Arkansas, population 4,000? And I won with that answer. So I felt like I had set the precedence that this is the way you're going to have this Miss USA. She's not the typical Miss USA. Background. My life, like so many people, especially business people and people who are trying to be successful in their lives, it was all about going after that achievement, getting that big win, trying to be successful. I was always after the best grades. I graduated second in my class in high school, went on to college and on scholarship. But what was interesting is I always found myself feeling for a moment that I did it. And then another sense of, oh gosh, I got to do it again. And I was always living on a hamster wheel. And what was interesting for me is that I found myself getting angry, really angry. I didn't understand why. I just knew that I always felt I was in emotional distress, always questioning. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You know how when should I do this? Should I do that? You're in that emotional chaos because you're trying to win at life, whatever it is, if it's in your career, in your relationships, whatever. That's what I was doing. And it made me so crazy that I followed my boyfriend because I was trying to do the right thing by him. I followed him to college where they didn't have a broadcasting department, and yet I wanted to be in broadcasting. So I was really just totally screwed up. I was overachieving in school, trying to overachieve in my relationships, denying myself, not doing what was in my heart. And I got so angry that I would often try to beat him up. And actually, just months prior to winning Miss USA, I put my fist in his kitchen window. So that sounds crazy, right? But I found myself just living that way, and I never understood why. And after Miss USA, I ended up in the television industry, what's now the E channel. I don't know if you get it in Australia, but
Mhm.
you do get it. So it used to be called Movie Time, and I was the news anchor. I got to cover the Academy Awards and the Cannes Film Festival and interview all kinds of cool people. But again, I felt like I was always on that hamster wheel. I remember a producer one day was up for a gig, and it was a game show for a host. And I think it was down between me and another woman. And he comes up because I used to, fix my hair just perfectly. And he puts his hands in my hair and he goes, loosen up, loosen up. And that was kind of the message I needed to hear in my whole life, but I wasn't quite getting it. And so, I mean, I had success, but I always felt like I was still trying to break through my glass ceilings. Movie Time at that time, again, now the E channel, we had 14 million viewers, which was amazing, but there were opportunities out there that were even better. And I would get down to that final person, me and one other person, right? And then they would get it. So I didn't understand it, and I just stayed on that hamster wheel. Well, I finally left everything because I had this calling to be a wife and mom. And I found myself putting my kids on that hamster wheel. I found myself trying to make them do the right thing, always performing. And every time I would find myself being controlling, I couldn't stand myself. I didn't like who I was. I knew that I was getting angry. I was getting frustrated. Luckily, I didn't hit any of them. It was just moments of feeling emotional and distraught. But it just felt awful to me. I knew that I was not doing the loving thing. And then my dad died in 95, and I woke up and realized that I was a lot like him because he had been living on a hamster wheel his whole life. I had attached myself to his energy because he seemed like he was having more fun in life, right? So I attached
Mhm.
myself to his energy, and then when he died a broken man. I woke up and said, I don't want to be this anymore. I don't want to be this example for my kids. I don't want to be always angry at my husband because I was always angry at him because he wasn't making me feel loved, right? I mean, we're always seeking that experience of fulfillment and love, and I wasn't finding it. I think the closest thing that I found with it was with my kids, just because when I was with them, the thing that I did really well is I was very present with them. I was very playful with them, even though I'd have my bad moments. Overall, I could get present with them, and that was a beautiful thing. But with my husband, oh my goodness, he got the brunt of all of my anger, all of my unhappiness, and I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that example for my family. So I made a decision to heal, and as soon as I made that decision to heal, Tracy, my whole world opened up. I started studying energy. I started studying intuitive healing, and never knew that I could see energy, that I could, excuse me, that I could move energy. It was just profound. And I don't know if you want me to go through the whole story. If you want to ask some questions, I could tell you the whole story right here, but I'd rather you just, ask me,
Yeah.
things that are really standing out to you. But that's how I got on the spiritual journey that I've been walking for over 20 years now.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that because, right now there's probably some people that are watching the show today or listening in
Mm-hmm.
the podcast and are like, I feel that way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're brought up, in society, we go to school and we're sort of programmed or indoctrinated into this world of, you success, 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 and you've got to work hard and you've got to hustle and you've got to grind and you've got to, you're always searching what's the next thing and the next thing and the next
Mm-hmm.
thing. And until such time as you've achieved all of those, well, happiness will just continue to elude you. And all that did, I mean, obviously that's what's happened to you is, it was like, well, all I did was like, I achieved that, but I got angry and I achieved the next, and I got angrier and then
Mm-hmm.
angrier and angrier until one day it's like, oh my God, I'm looking at myself, looking at, and in this case with dad, that happening with dad, and you're going, whoa, I'm seeing myself in, in my, so much of me or so
Yep.
much of dad in me now, and now seeing him at the end of his life and going, well, that's not what I want for me. That was kind of like the catalyst, then go searching for, there's got to be a better way. What else can what else can I do?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of that, because like I said, there'll be a lot of people listening today that are feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
What would, other than what we've just spoken about, like, would you say that that is the number one reason that most people are like living on this hamster wheel of stress and struggle? Like, what, in your opinion now, after kind of doing this for a number of years, realizing that was the case for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
then working with a number of people, is that the reason that most people are on that hamster wheel, or are you seeing other things? Like, what are some of the identifiers?
Well, one of the things that I have really recognized is that the way, and I'm assuming it's the same way in Australia, but here in the United States, we're programmed, and you see this all the time in families, that the parents put the kids first. And it's often the reason that marriages fall apart and the divorce rate is so high, is because parents put the kids first. They want their kids to have things that they didn't have. They want it to be better for them. So they put the kids first, then they put each other first. And somewhere in there, each individual sometimes gets some nurturing, right? It's like give, 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 give. And what they do is they set an example of it's not okay to receive. It's not okay to receive. Because I know I watched my mom and dad, and I mean, mom lived on a hamster wheel at home, trying to do the right thing, trying to make sure the house was just right, and taking care of dad and taking care of us. And what I came to discover is that because I didn't fill up my mother the way she wanted to be filled up, she would lash out. So as a very young child, I took on a belief that said, I am to blame for my mother's pain. Now think about that. When we take on that belief, if we're seeing our parents who are frustrated or worn out and they lash out, because they're going to have their moments, right? They're going to be in their humanness. A child will take on the belief that I am to blame for your pain. And so what do? Is we start performing and we don't receive. We just keep doing this over and over again. And if we want our cups to be full, we have to be open to receive. And that's what I recognized about my dad when he died, Tracy. It was so interesting because Daddy, he had died a broken man. He was only 54, but he had lost everything in bankruptcy. He became an alcoholic. And we would just say, Dad, we don't care about any of the work stuff. We don't care about any of that. Go flip hamburgers, because he had had a successful real estate business and then lost everything because of a recession. And so, we were like, we don't care, but he couldn't receive it. And just right when he was dying, I was with him 2 days before he died. And I said to him, Daddy, please, I don't want to lose you. You've always been my ally, because he'd always say you can be anything you want to be. But it was interesting because his eyes bugged open, Tracy, and he looked at me like, you mean you love me? You mean you love me? And I recognized in that moment that my dad did not know how to receive love. And so I think that's when it started hitting me that, not everyone was doing it. I got that seed planted that people don't receive. Well, then years later, I was teaching an Enlightened Mom course, because I wrote a book called The Enlightened Mom, won Best Spiritual Book of the Year at New York and San Francisco book festivals. And I was teaching this live class, and we went to a bookstore for the final day of the class. And we got grounded. I took them through some energy tools, and I said, now go inside the bookstore and ask what God wants you to see. This beautiful universal energy. Go in and ask what you're being guided to see. And the one woman who had struggled through the class the most was the first one back, and she was crying. And she says, I get it now. All this time I've been asking and asking and asking for guidance. I've been asking for things, and nothing would show up, and I would get so angry. And now I get it. I was the one who was not open to receive. So this is what we are programmed with in our society. We are not open to receive. And because we're not open to receive, we can't receive the abundance and the love of the universe. We're not open to it. So what we do is we just keep working that much harder, thinking, well, if I work harder, if I do better, then I'll be able to receive life's rewards. And life's rewards can be that raise or a loving relationship where you feel as if your partner is seeing you and hearing you and valuing you, right? But if you don't have permission to receive that kind of love, you're not going to experience it. It could even be in front of your face at times, and you still wouldn't see it that way. So when you ask me about, what's going on and what this issue is with the hamster wheel, it is because we are not open to receive. We have been programmed. And I mean, I think there's even the biblical passage, or at least it's what I learned in church growing up, is better to give than receive. Yeah, it's great to give. But if you don't have permission to receive, you are going to be empty. And I have to tell you, my husband now, because my late husband passed away back in 2007, and then my husband now actually showed up on my doorstep the next day. I was open to receive, I guess.
The divine sent them your way real fast.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I was manifesting, okay? But what was interesting is Charlie, that's his name, he got on this journey with me. And a couple of years ago, he said to me, I knew you loved me, but until you taught me to love myself, I couldn't receive your love. And now I do. So think about that. I mean, we want to have deep relationships, but if we're not open to receive that relationship, we give and give and give, but if we're not open to receive, we can't experience the love. And it was so cool for Charlie to say that to me. He said, he was saying to me, you taught me to love myself, and now I can receive your love. That goes completely against what we've been trained in our society, in our culture, right? I mean, do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely. And this is such a powerful realization, right? So for those that are listening today, like when you really allow that to sink in and we start thinking about, are we really open to receiving? And how many times, like in the little things that we do, and I can even think, I'm guilty of doing this too. People even paying you a compliment, and you say, no, not even just the simplest things in life that we often continue to just shut off, yes. Because you've been taught or become been brought up to give, as you say, to give and to support others. And you were asking me, earlier, you said, I think is it the same, or I think it's the same in, America as it is in Australia, as it is, and I'm originally from New Zealand. Oh. And the cultures are subtly different in each, actually in each country. Mm-hmm. And I know from my Kiwi or my New Zealand upbringing, we're very much brought up to not do that, like to constantly be the giver, be humble, be giving. You don't ask for things because that's rude. All of these sorts of things that you are taught as a youngster to then kind of you take on, and you keep layering all of these things on in your life till you get to the point where, oh my God, now I'm growing up and I'm an angry adult because I actually don't know how to fill my bucket up because I've bled it dry. I've given everything I've got, and I have nothing left in my stores. So this is I love these conversations because they're so important to us, and because I've had lots of them over the last few months around sort of turning inward and very much focused on ourselves. And that process of and I even think about, I can hear my mother and my parents and my aunts and uncles talking about their upbringing and how tough it was. So all they wanted to do was give their kids the best. And, and in that generation, lots of marriage separations, etc., etc., because totally focused on the kids. You as your partnership coming a somewhat long way second, and then I don't know, somewhere down there, maybe you might focus on yourself at some point. And now we're having this shift, and what you're saying is really thinking about focusing on you. What is it that you want? Filling up your bucket, making sure that you're full, because if you are open to receiving, things will come to you. Secondly, if you have a full bucket, you'll then have got something to be able to give and not run yourself dry. Yeah. I want to go down this path, Terri. So I know, you've got this process that you call like the WQ. And I want to know...
You're not saying the worthiness quotient.
I'm not saying that word now. It's the WQ now. I'll be like, the worthiness quotient. Yeah, well, I'm just going to leave it open to Terri to say. So I'm just going to say the WQ. She will say it right.
That's cool.
So, we find a way, right? So the WQ, and how is that actually affecting people's lives? How do you work that out? You've obviously got a process of this. Talk us through the process, the system, and how someone can work out whether or not their WQ is I'm assuming high or low, or how it's actually impacting their life.
Well, first off, let's explain what the worthiness quotient is. So the worthiness quotient is how open you are to receiving love, nurturing, and support from the universe, from God, from the people around you, simply for who you were created to be. Okay, so it means no performing, no trying to get it right, no trying to do it right. It means simply standing in your truth. How high your worthiness quotient is how much you love and accept yourself, how much you are standing in alignment with the way you were created. When you have a low worthiness quotient, it means you are performing, trying to win love, success, and happiness. Now, it's based in the vibration you hold. Okay, so we know we're all energy. We also know that our subconscious minds run about 95% of our lives, and that these thoughts in our mind create feelings, and then those feelings emit a vibration. So here is where I see the dilemma, okay? So we've been hearing for a while now, fill up your own cup. That's not new information, right? The problem is that we can be filling up our own cup and trying to do things that are loving and kind to ourselves. But if we are having subconscious thoughts that are emitting a vibration that says, I don't deserve to have this kind of abundance, then whatever we're wanting to create, we're actually going to repel it. So, for instance, if I am wanting my husband to help me take out the trash, right? I may say, will you help me take out the trash? But if I have a subconscious belief that says, you don't deserve to be heard, or you don't deserve to get to ask what you want, it's going to emit a vibration that says, no, you can't have this. And then that's what's going to be mirrored back to you, because the law of vibration says that vibrations attract the same kind of vibration. So you can be thinking all day long, this is what, I believe I'm worthy. I believe that I should be seen, heard, and valued. And you may even be taking steps, but if you have subconscious beliefs that are keeping you at a lower vibration, you're not going to create what you want to create. So for instance, if you're wanting a raise, right? And you see yourself as making a great income in your job, you have this vision in your mind of what it looks like. So that holds a vibration right here. Okay. You are trying to take some steps, but if your subconscious thoughts are emitting a vibration that is down here, there's no match. You're going to have a hard time creating what you want to create. So you've got to get your vibration up here to match, so that then you co-create with the universe. What happens is that when you have a low worthiness quotient, now I can't even say it. When you have
Sorry about that. What have I done?
So when you have a low worthiness quotient, you're going to attract things with low energy. When you have a high worthiness quotient, meaning that you're loving and honoring the way you were created, you're cleaning out the subconscious mind so that now your subconscious mind is emitting a vibration that is high. You come into this space of a high vibration. You're now open and receptive, and you attract energies that are the same as vibration as this. And this is how we create. So we can talk the game all day. Yeah, I'm worthy. I can do this. But then we often find ourselves coming up short. And it's because what's going on in our vibrational field, which is coming from our subconscious mind. So it's really key that we get into the subconscious mind. So you were asking about the process of what to do.
Yeah. So I'm going to want to know now, because now that we've established that it doesn't kind of matter what we say on the outside, like you're saying, I'm worthy, I can do it, $1 million is coming my way, the best relationship in the world, all of those things kind of we're saying on the outside, but the record that's playing behind the scenes on the inside, and that subconscious mind is kind of telling you something completely different, and maybe it's going in a different direction. So how does one get, and I know you're going to get here in terms of like the process, but like now that we understand that that's the case, and we know that our subconscious mind is responsible for the majority of what actually plays out in our lives and in our world,
right?
How do we start reprogramming that? Because a lot of people have been going, okay, I totally get that. I've been saying these affirmations and I've been doing this
Mm-hmm.
ditty and I've been doing this and that on the outside.
Yeah,
But, it's still not happening. It's not happening, Terri. Like, why is that?
exactly.
How do we reprogram that subconscious mind of ours? Because it's, it can be so darn stubborn sometimes.
So the way I was shown, and everything that I do is what I call divinely guided. I am very tapped in. From when I got on my healing journey, I started opening up to my intuition and higher wisdom. And what's so interesting is that the more you clean out the subconscious mind and the more you get into alignment, you open up to a greater intuition and higher wisdom. So that was what was so cool. So now over the years, I've been doing this for a while. I get these what I call divine downloads. So what was shown to me is that your outer world is a mirror to your inner world. So remember, your vibration draws to you vibrations that show you yourself. So I pay attention to my outer world. That is my number one focus. And that sounds kind of weird because I do go within, but I let that be my guide. So I'm going along, all of a sudden Joe pulls in front of me on the highway, and I'm like, you idiot. And I want to scream and really just go off. That's a sign. Okay. That's a sign that, whoa, there's something going on inside of me. I mean, obviously we don't want people to cut us off, right? But we can really go over the edge. People have bad days. And, now if somebody's driving crazy, yeah, I'm going to be the first to say this guy needs to get off the road. But if it's just an accident, right? It's one of those things where he just pulls in front of you and he's not paying attention and you get so reactive. That's your clue. Your feelings are your clue that there's something going on inside of you. So life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. So maybe this is hypothetical. So maybe you're driving down the road and this happens and you react. For me, the way I was shown is to then visualize the little girl, the little 5-year-old Terri inside of me, to become the divine parent to her and recognize that she's the one who's reacting. She's the one in her woundedness that is reacting. So I look at her and I say, wow, I can see you're really reacting. And what's going on? What's hurting? So I'm now bringing compassion to the situation. Okay. What's hurting? What's causing you to react this way? And she says, it really scared me. It really, really scared me. And then I said, yeah, I get that. I see that it scared you. And what did it bring up for you? So I let those feelings guide me back to my childhood, maybe when something happened. And I'll say, well, what else is coming up? And she says, oh, I remember the time when I was with mom and daddy in the car and this person hit us and it was so scary. I thought I was going to die. And I said, yeah, I really get that. And then I ask, what is the belief you took on? What is the belief you took on back then? So I've let my feelings guide me to the belief that is being triggered from the past. It may be in childhood. It could have been 2 years ago, but I just allow myself to go back. And that little girl is not necessarily symbolic of you as a 5-year-old, but is like the symbolic of the woundedness. Okay. And so I pay attention to that. So I ask her, what is the belief that you took on back then? And she might say something as simple as, if other drivers are crazy, you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can you see how that would be keep somebody in reactionary mode and cause them anxiety and stress, right? So you can then become the divine parent to that little kid and say, oh, wow, I really get that was hard for you. I really understand that. But what I want you to know now is that there are a lot of crazy drivers on the road and we're still alive, right? And so now you start bringing her down and bringing her into a state of peace. So for me, I use energetic tools. I visualize a rose and I visualize putting all the energy in the rose. I visualize letting all the fear, all the pain, and I move it out. And then I send it out into the universe and blow it up like confetti. So I'm sending the energy back with love. And then I call back my truth. I just ask, what is my truth? What is my truth? That I'm protected, that I'm loved, that I am nurtured, that I'm surrounded by light. And so by being that divine parent and really getting connected in that way, now that little kid feels safe. Okay, now she's feeling safe because I'm not overreacting. A lot of times when we're having crap go on in our lives, the little kid inside of us is the one who's running the show, and the adult has left the room. So for me, it's always imagining that I'm the divine mother to this little girl, and that if there's anything that I'm reacting to, that's when I scoop her up. I love her. I have compassion for her. I get to the bottom of what her belief is that she's holding on to, and really nurture her into a safe, loving, protected space. And then by doing so, I can ask her, what do you need to feel loved? And it's from me, not from the outer world. What do I need to give you to love you? Okay. And then by taking action, I nurture myself into a high worthiness quotient. And I can give you, I'm having a memory of a great example of this happening specifically in my life. So do I have time to share this with you?
Yeah, please do. We'd love to hear.
So,
and I also want to ask too, Terri, like, this process that you have, is there some way that, because I know that our viewers are also going to be like, okay, I want to know, like, where am I at on this, on the WQ? Where do I sit? And if I'm low, like, is there a tool or a way that I can help
sure.
increase or raise my vibrational level so that I can be, raise my Q, my
Sure.
I want to about my WQ.
Worthiness quotient, your WQ. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a test or a quiz that we just put out, and it is so incredible because it looks at 8 different areas of your life to really see where your worthiness quotient is. So you'll have you take the quiz and you get a one whole number, and then you get an email sent to you with a breakdown of the different areas of where you're holding your vibration. And then we give you some tips and tools on how to start shifting it. So you can go to terribritt.com/quiz, just TERRIBRITT.com/quiz, QUIZ. So the story. Okay. So when I first got on my journey of doing some spiritual work, and the way little Terri came into my life as I was meditating one day on unconditional love, then she showed up. I'd never acknowledged her. I had never seen her, nothing. And I started crying and crying and crying. And I heard in my ear, get up and write this. This is the beginning of your book. That was the beginning of my first book, Message Sent, which was my journal of awakening. So I started paying attention to my outer world. That's really what the book was about. It was like a bunch of little stories of seeing what was going on in the outer world to look at my inner world. So for a couple of months, actually it had been for a couple of years, every time I'd go into a grocery store, the bank, day-to-day stuff. Now you have to remember, I'm a former Miss USA and a former television host. I would go into these places and be nervous and anxious about people. I mean, that doesn't make sense, right? I mean, it was like, what's going on? So I kept resisting this feeling and judging it at first. Well, then one day, again, I hear in my ear, and it's always my voice, but I hear in my ear, embrace this, see it as a gift. So I started saying, thank you for this gift. I don't know what's going on, but thank you for this gift. About 2 months after that, I walked into one of those office superstores at 9 a.m. in the morning to get some office supplies. No one was there except for me and the cashier. I started feeling this feeling again. Okay. I mean, it was really prevalent. Like I'm feeling like I'm having anxiety. For me, it felt like energy running through my body, but I think most people would describe it as anxiety, but I'm just so familiar with energy. I think that's what it was. So I'm feeling this feeling. And I just leaned over my shopping cart, visualizing little Terri standing there. And I said, what's hurting? What's causing you to react this way? And in my mind, this little girl's standing there with her big brown eyes. And she says, when I go out into public, I have to act perfectly or I get into big trouble. Right then in that moment, she told me the belief that if I didn't act perfectly, that I would be punished. Now think about how that would create anxiety, especially when you have parents who are always trying to make you be good because they think that they're preparing you for the world. They're preparing you for your future. But I really took on this belief that I was going to be punished and I couldn't be me out in public. Well, in that moment, I took a stand and I said, I'm the boss now. Mm-hmm. And you have my permission to do cartwheels down this aisle if that's what you need to do. And Tracy, I am not joking. In that moment, I got to the subconscious belief. I took back my power and I released it. And because I did, and I really stood in that, and then continued to just love that little girl, I nurtured myself into a high worthiness quotient. And I never have had that experience again. I mean, it went on for 2 years, but I allowed the feelings. At first, I resisted it. That's what we normally do, right? We resist our feelings, we judge them, we push them down, we start getting depressed, we feel hopeless because nothing changes. Our feelings are our soul talking to us. And so when I started paying attention to that and said, okay, I'm not going to resist this anymore, and heard that little message, embrace it, see it as a gift, and started saying, thank you. Thank you for the gift. Thank you for showing me that there's something hurting inside of me. And then in that moment when I felt it again, because I had been having this amazing relationship that I was building with this little girl inside of me. So in that moment when it was very, very heightened, I was able to really look at her and say, what's hurting? What's causing you to react this way? And just by asking those questions, I went immediately into the belief. Now, it's not always going to be that way. Sometimes I will journal and journal and journal and journal and let everything get out on the page, and then get to a place where I can be really receptive and get that message. But just the knowledge of what the belief is, that's like 95% of the game, right? Because if it is causing you pain and suffering, it's not the truth. That's what you have to realize. If it is causing you pain and suffering, and it is keeping you at a low worthiness quotient where life feels hard, whatever the belief is not the truth. So we can do these mind games with ourselves and try to convince ourselves that this is the way life is. It is not the way it's supposed to be. You are a child of this beautiful energy of God. If you go into the Bible, it says we help make up the body of Christ. Whatever your religion is, we are part of it. And in that, our natural birthright is light and love and peace and joy. It's just that we've been performing for so long, trying to win love, that we're suffering. Our suffering is because we're disconnected from who we are. Think about that. Our suffering is because we're disconnected. But when we create that connection with that little child inside of us and start being a parent to that little kid and asking, how can I love you? What's hurting? And release the crap that we took on, we move into alignment. We move into a high worthiness quotient, and then we are open to receive the love, the nurturing, and the support that we deserve. But it's up to us, not the outside world. It's up to us to make that choice.
I love all of this. So what I'm hearing from today is that we're using, or in your case, we're using our outer world to provide us with the mirror to what's going on the inside.
Exactly.
And when we're experiencing particular things, whether it be, you're experiencing, something going on in our world, or even having a feeling or those thoughts, just taking a moment to kind of like sit with that and say, well, what is this? Like, be a little bit curious as to what's actually going on here, and then starting to settle with yourself and ask, be present with, we're very good, like you're saying, very good at being present with others. And this is like being present with ourselves, be present with who you are, then being very quiet and listening to that, and allowing your inner voice to actually speak with you, and for you to actually hear it. So when you talk about being able to receive the messages that you are providing to yourself, and then speaking back to yourself in a past tense, that this is where I was thinking about, when was the time where you felt this way, where did this belief come from, and then being able to nurture yourself, speak kindly to yourself, and almost reprogram that belief that you'd taken on some time ago, so that now you're able to move through this life, this present moment that you're in, with a level of what do I want to say? I was like, almost like I'm comfortable, I'm confident, I'm aware of where it is that I'm going, and that you're in total alignment with who it is that you truly are, allowing that truth of who you are, to be present and being very authentic in that process, and that authenticity allowing that to guide you very kindly through the life that you are having now.
Yeah.
And I see that as being, you talk a lot about receiving that so that you have it with grace and ease, and that process of really being present with oneself, doing that with that grace and doing it with ease, so that then starts to change the mirror on the outside.
Yeah, exactly.
Am
Because
I
as
understanding all of that correctly?
you are understanding that correctly. And that's so important to understand, because we think, how do I change my situation? How do I change my relationship, my job position, my, whatever it is. I want to have a home. I'm living in my car, whatever it is, it has to do with your thoughts and your vibration. So if you want to change it, it's not about forcing it out here. It's about going within and healing to see what is being mirrored to you. I know for me that I used to struggle with women. Okay. I mean, I had a tumultuous relationship with my mother because she was always trying to make me be good. And my soul was going, no, I just want to have a voice. I want to rock the boat. I want to be doing what I'm here to do. And she was, no, you got to not do that. And so it really made me resist her. Right. I didn't feel loved. And so what we have to do is we have to say, okay, I want this change. I want to have better relationships. And so instead of making my mother change or making the people around me change or the women change, is I shifted me. And it was so interesting because I remember one time thinking, I mean, you have to understand, I have a global community called Women Leaders of Love, right? And I love women now. But I remember thinking years ago, I was like, well, I don't like women. And then I checked in with myself and I said, is that true? Is that true? And then I was like, no, they don't like me. And then I went deeper, and it was my mother saying to me, I love you, but I don't like you. And see how that belief would project into all women, right? And as soon as I cleared that up and I was loving myself and liking myself and having deep connections with, and I'd always have like a good friend, but it was like a bunch of women, right? A group of women. So to be able to shift that and get to the bottom of it and go, no, I love women. I love women. I love the fact that we're so in tune, that we feel more, that we, and I have to tell you, I love my husband so much because I always tell him he has more estrogen than I do. Because he feels so much, right? He's just such a beautiful soul. I mean, he is just, oh my God. And so, I love that deep connection. And so it's hard to get that sometimes with men. I'm blessed that I have a husband who is willing to open up. And my late husband, even though we didn't start that way, when I decided to shift, he shifted with me because I quit blaming him. I mean, we were probably heading for divorce at some point because our relationship was breaking down that much. But because I started healing and I quit pointing fingers at him as to what he was doing to me, and instead started giving thanks for how he was showing me myself, the walls came down between us. I would go to him and say, this is what I'm learning from our relationship. And I recognized that we were in soul agreement. And then he shifted with me so that we went from this old paradigm of a marriage falling apart to a paradigm where we were in agreement that we were growing and learning with each other. Now, Charlie, when he came into my life, boom, it was like that from the beginning. It was like, this is the way I am. If you're not going to do this with me, we're not in a relationship. Right. And he has been walking this with me. So it's so beautiful. I didn't have that when I was younger. Right. And as I said, in my first marriage before Steve died, it was probably halfway through it that I really started understanding, or maybe about a third of it, that I started understanding that I had to be the one to shift. So we have the power to shift our lives, but it means we have to choose to love ourselves. We have to stop performing And we have to nurture ourselves into abundance. And when we do, we're treating ourselves as if we're worthy of being seen. We treat ourselves as if we're worthy of being heard and valued. Every time we connect to that little kid, we're creating that vibration, that energy of, oh, you mean I deserve to be loved? Yeah, I deserve to be seen. I deserve to have playtime. I deserve to have pleasure in my life. Oh, you mean I can have that? And as we shift into that vibration, our worthiness rises, and then that is what is mirrored back to us. And it's so fun to see this in your relationships. You think, well, do I have to have a relationship end to have this? No, you can shift, and your relationship can shift with you, especially when you quit blaming and being angry at the people around you and instead see them as gifts. It changes everything.
Super, super powerful. But I want to before we kind of end this today, because we can talk for this is such an awesome topic, and it's and I could talk on this for hours, like just listen and talk. And anyway, I want to go down the path of, we started this whole thing off with a little ditty, and I want to know, like you mentioned right at the beginning, kind of partly how that came about, but I want to know, why do you say you should be singing this ditty like in the morning and as often as you can? Like you even talk about when you're having those thoughts, sing your little ditty. So how did that come about, and why do you say that?
Well, I was rubbing my dogs. I have two giant dogs, and I was sitting there, and one on either side, and I was like this, and rubbing them, and I'm always singing to them. I sing the old Barney song, I love you, you love me. I sing these songs, right? And I don't know how it transitioned that day, but all of a sudden it's like, I receive abundance simply for being me. I give and receive it freely with grace and ease. And I went, whoa, that's a really powerful message. And then I started singing it some more. And then what I would do is I'd raise my vibration, and by telling my mind and feeling it in my energy, because see, remember, everything is about your vibration and your feelings, right? So by singing this song, and you can find it on my website, it's just go to terribritt.com and you'll see it right on the front page. I'm standing there in a black shirt and a white background that says Women Leaders of Love. You'll hear the song, and I think we even have the words on there, if I remember correctly, so you can read them. But when you start singing this song, you're reprogramming your brain. And because you're bringing your vibration up, because you'll see me, I get more and more empowered with the music of it. It becomes a mind hack. I mean, when we are going into doubt, when we're going into lack and what I call poverty consciousness, where we're really in those lower level vibrations of anger, frustration, blame, depression, whatever it is, that is an old habit. Okay. And we do the tools, we do the clearing, but sometimes we just stay in that energy because it's what we know, right? And so it's recognizing that, oh, I'm doing that again. And so if you start singing that little ditty, you immediately start opening up to receive, because now you're in this joyful vibration. You're singing it. I mean, you said you and your husband were doing it today. I love that.
We were.
And what's so funny is that you're now doing a mind hack. You're cutting the cord of what you were doing. You're starting to reprogram your brain, because we can reprogram our brains. And now you're moving yourself into a high vibration. And I just think it's so funny, because I sing it some, but I've kind of, I put that up, I think, a couple of years ago, and I've left it there. And I've had people say to me, oh my gosh, I love that little song. And I forget about it, because I'm always singing little songs, but not necessarily that one. But now I'm going to go back to singing it because it is so much fun. But I want to point just one thing out, because I know we could talk forever. There is a tendency to think that if I'm loving myself this much, that it is selfish. And what's selfish is when you're walking around angry, you're frustrated, you're depressed, and the people around you are having to experience that energy. Like me, when I was afraid that I was perpetuating a cycle with my family, what I saw with my dad, if I had stayed in that cycle and trying to control them and trying to make them be good and achieve and do all the things that I thought they needed to do, that would have been true selfishness. That would have been ego driven. Okay. But when I chose to love myself and to do the inner work, I became an expression of love for my family. Now I'm an example for them to thrive. And let me tell you, I started this when my kids were little bitty, and I'm a grandma now. I'm a nana. My kids are almost 30 years old. And to see them thriving in their relationships, to have businesses, and to just really be abundant is huge. And so I know without a doubt that I gave my family the most beautiful gift by loving myself, because now they're loving themselves. They're holding a space of a high worthiness quotient, and they have beautiful relationships. Their careers are thriving. I mean, you go through your stuff in your 20s, but just to see it is so cool. And I know it's because it started with me, because I'm the one who set that tone. I became a woman leader of love for my family.
Fantastic. Well, there you go, guys. I mean, this has been such a I've loved this conversation, and like I said, we could go on for hours about this, but I want to make sure that we started this show off with the little ditty, and so it's only fitting that we finish today's show with the little ditty. And for everybody else, they are going to be able to join in, because I'm going to put the little ditty on the screen beneath, so that you too can join in with us. So we will make sure that in just a few moments that we actually go down that path. Not American Idol or anything like that, but it's just us kind of singing. So maybe two grandmas singing to their granddaughter or grandson. So we're taking it from that point of view. But I think today has been a fantastic conversation for everybody that wants to continue to follow Terri, because I know that those of you, we've had a heap of people sticking around, and those sort of jumping in and out, listening in. You can go to terribritt.com, and like she said, you can go to terribritt.com/quiz and download that quotient quiz, and make sure that you get yourself a copy of that, do the quiz, get the information from Terri, and then you can understand where you are in that quotient, and we can make sure that you can do some things to continue to increase your vibration, increase your abundance in this world, because you absolutely deserve it. So I want to say thank you so much, Terri, for being here today.
Thank you so much.
We have to, I've just got to do this, right? We've just got to add this to the screen, and we're going to just do it. So, you right? Are you with me? So
I'm
let's
with
do
you.
this. Everybody else who's listening today, you can too, because right now I'm going to put the words on the bottom of the screen, so there's absolutely no excuse. You should be bopping up and down in your chair if you're listening right now, or even in the car, and you can sing along with us. So the tune is To Little Bunny Foo Foo, if you didn't figure this out, but that's what we're going to be doing. And here we go. So I'm going to pop it on the screen, and let's go. All righty. We'll wait for it to come around again, just so that we can actually see the words.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm looking at it down here.
Anyway, we see it. All right, here we go. I receive
abundance simply for being me. I give and receive it freely with grace and ease.
There you go, guys. Woohoo! So thank you so much for being here today, Terri. I want to say thank you to everybody else who's been watching. Hope you guys said that. And if you didn't, it should be stuck in your head right now. You get to experience that being in your head all day, like I have all night. And it's a little bit of fun. So hope you've enjoyed today's show. I certainly have enjoyed my conversation with Terri. And I look forward to being with you guys again this Friday for another episode of Unlocked at 10 a.m. Brisbane time. So I want to say thank you so much for being here, and bye for now.